saw Alice Wahome talking about democracy. I don't know where it came from, because that was a funeral, a private function, I would say. And coming in very strongly to tell the president like there's no democracy, we had not seen anything that would have warranted such comments. And then then we saw the press conference that followed. And of course, then there have been this BBI meeting, the one that happened within the Luo and Nyanza, and we saw the Kisis and Luos and Luyas coming together. For me, I didn't really read a lot out of it. But of course, there are people who have said it's a political, I think, formation that is coming up. I would want to say, and again, repeat, that everybody has the freedom, and that is what they have been fighting for, even the last weeks, that democracy. People have the freedom to meet and associate. It is sad when some people meet, then there is a lot of uncomfortable. You can see even from the deputy president's voice was very uncomfortable. Well, all of us, and I would say, truth be told, even after the handshake, we were all shocked and like, what was this handshake about? I was not consulted. I don't also think our colleagues from the ODM side were consulted. But somehow, when our leaders came and said, this is the direction to bring the country together, and so that we can have peace, we followed. Because those are our leaders.
Honorable Chege, there are those who've been questioning or asking the question that we spent a couple of months, actually more than 1 year, consulting. The BBI report was unveiled at the Bomas of Kenya.
Yes.
And now there is a phase 2 of consultation. We see the president making an appointment of the task force and saying that one of the agenda is to validate the BBI report. What exactly is this that will be happening that hasn't happened over the past 1 or so years?
I think one thing I will say, when we launched the BBI, the next thing that the president said, read. And he encouraged the Kenyans, don't let the politicians read for you, read. But even at the ground where I've been going, I've been trying to print a summary and giving a few copies, but there are no copies. People don't know what BBI is. They don't understand.
So
the entire Murang'a County, you know, and I think one of the things, if that task force is to be there, because it was gazetted yesterday, is for them to provide a few copies. And I would say the whole thing is 156. I don't think people read. It's a summary, and not just a summary, but even in the local language, so that people can understand what is in the BBI.
And that leads me to our next question. Very quickly, Honorable Sylvia, I'll come to you, Honorable Gladys Shule, in just a bit. Yesterday, when President Uhuru Kenyatta finally gazetted this notice, we've seen a fresh term for the BBI. Is this necessary?
Well, let me pick it up first from where Honorable Chege has said, is the understanding the whole purpose of that BBI report and coming up with it. And the whole genesis of the handshake, which many of us didn't understand what was the purpose of the handshake until the agenda was set and the task force was formed and they went around forming the question. When the report finally came out, you remember a lot of mixed feelings, and those who felt, oh, what was then the purpose, or it was underwhelming, or whatever. And I remember speaking in a forum and saying, you know what, there's nothing wrong with us capturing our issues in a report, and we can now look and say, fine, post-promulgation of a new constitution, these are still the areas where we have gaps. These are still the areas that are yet to be either something done about them.
After the launch of the BBI, is there a need to still have this task force?
I'm coming to that, So the report then has captured our issues pretty well. I've actually gone out and printed mine, and as you can see, like she says, this is not something for everybody to read. I have not read it entirely myself. Actually, I find myself always going to the summary page, and I wish Kenyans would have something lighter to read. Now, the reason why I believe there's still need for further consultation is that there's still yet a question to be formed by Kenyans to say, do we then need a referendum? And if you're going to a referendum, what exactly are we going to referendum about? Which is the question are we going to pose to Kenyans? So there's a need to sensitize Kenyans on this report.
Uhuru said that they should give
Yes,
there's need to give a comprehensive report by 30th June. Do you think they'll meet that deadline? 6 months?
I believe they can, of course. They're using taxpayers' money, they better, because also time is of the essence. But we don't want to mix BBI report. These things are very critical and crucial to Kenyans. And we don't want to mix this with the politics of 2022. We have to separate.
Senator Kasanga, let's just listen into what Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula have said about the conversations that are going on, so that we can focus on the meeting in Kisii and the one that is expected to happen this weekend in Kakamega, I believe. But first, Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula.
Wengine wanajaribu kusema, if you are not in their musafara, then you are not for BBI. This kind of intimidation must stop. People must think independently, lakini isiwe kwamba BBI inaanza kuwa hijacked na itumiwe kwa njia ya kisiasa. BBI should not divide Kenyans.
If BBI was meant to unite Kenyans, the way you are going, you are dividing Kenyans even more. It's unhelpful, it is reckless, it will bear no fruits. Yale yote walikuwa wanasema, usipokuwa na sisi, wewe ni mbaya. When we were with them, we were good people. When we say they're doing things the wrong way, we become bad people. Hiyo si ungwana hata kidogo.
And unfortunately, that's where we are. It's us versus them. I want to pose the question to you, but first, let me conclude on what Senator Kasanga was saying. So, the meetings in Kisii, what is the structure? Because the task force was just gazetted yesterday. There's a meeting that happened last week organized by politicians. There's another one organized by politicians this weekend.
Yes.
So what is the structure? You're saying the public consultations?
I'm not sure what the structure is because I'm not privy to the organizers of these functions. As you've noticed, WIPA, we've not quite been part of that. And there's also a reason. Just left out? No, there's a reason for that. It's because we are also unpacking this document to understand. And what I want to say to most of these leaders, because what is happening now is politicizing something that should not be politicized. At this time in this country, the last thing we should be doing is politicizing this document and the issues that are in this document. It's important that it be an inclusive conversation. That I agree. But let us be inclusive when we are discussing issues. Let these leaders come and say, this part of the BBI section, this one, needs to look in this way. Let's not say, oh, I'm in support,
so
or
is
I'm
it the leaders to say or the Kenyans to speak? I mean,
well, leaders have to guide the conversation. You see, that's the thing. Kenyans have to rely on their leaders to give them a certain direction, isn't it?
Okay.
So we as WIPA leaders have come together. The senators, we've come together. And the idea is we unpack this document. We unpack this document and we see what is best for our people. And that is where we shall start forming our conversations from. And you'll hear about this because we shall come and say, of the BBI recommendations, on this section, this is what we want to see as being formed as a question to put out to Kenyans to make a decision. And this is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Rather than politicizing this issue and start forming, factions and whatever, can leaders talk issues? Can leaders pick out the salient issues and the important issues and unpack them for Kenyans, rather than now starting to form groups and saying this and that, and we begin to lose the point. And I think we are at a turning point right now in our country. And us as leaders, history will judge us. History will judge us harshly if we do not, turn this country and take it in the right way. And I think the President and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga did a good thing to form this BBI. Because these issues, when you read, are the issues that are affecting Kenyans on daily life today.
All right.
So let leaders take this leadership.
Let's speak to Honorable Shole. We've seen the Deputy President very agitated with the meetings that are happening, criticizing them that they're just channels of wastage of resources. But when you look at those meetings, you see one of the principles in the BBI framework, and also you see senior civil servants and then several politicians. Why is the Deputy President complaining, yet those fora have cabinet secretaries who sit in cabinet with him guiding the process?
Before I answer your question, let's put this in context. Kenya has one of the most brilliant human resource base in the world. We have such intelligent people. We have such competent professionals. What worries me is why do we do things in such a pedestrian manner when we have professionals who can do the job? Even if we are required, as the President said we must go out and let people read the BBI. Step number one, when you begin to want to do a civic education, if you go and read about electoral network, there's a big international body of electoral network, people who are involved in elections, in the voter education and civic education. There is standards. Standards have been set. And I know when I was at IEBC, we were part of that network. The current IEBC is part of that network. It tells you the manner in which to break down a document to the ordinary person, whether it's for referendum purposes, whether it's for legislation making purposes, and so on. So, it's getting the same people who purported to have done the most extensive consultation in the history of Kenya, their words from their own report, they said that, are now being sent to go back to the same people. So if we are repeating the job, it means they are incompetent and didn't do the right job. If they're going back to the people, maybe the other argument is that maybe they just feel like caravanting around the country and spending resources. Because what they should really do is, as the senator says, you are supposed to get the document, print it in hard copies, in both languages, Kiswahili and English. There are many non-governmental organizations in this country whose job is to do civic education. It's part of their mandate. I'll allow them to be part of the process. Let them be the ones who disseminate the information to members of the public. Also, IEBC has an entire directorate of voter education.
Right.
Those are professionals in that office who know how to disseminate information to the public. So the question is, why do we set up a task force of people who have no expertise in that area to undertake a task for which we already have an institution
that is mandated to do that. But Honorable Chege, the question of a deputy president complaining of what's happening, yet he sits in cabinet with the likes of cabinet secretary from
I told you I have to put it in context first.
Yes, and you do get that. I just want you to get it.
So the context is the manner in which wananchi wajisomee ama waelewe is not being done in the correct way.
Okay.
That we must first make sure it is correct. That people understand that. Now, let's come to the entire BBI process. Persons like me, I cannot say that I know what the deputy president was thinking, but I have similar thoughts. So I can say what my thoughts are.
Okay.
My thoughts have always been, one, because they talk about BBI being a process that will take us to a referendum. I have said this, and I will not get tired of saying it, that there is nothing called a BBI process in our law. There is only a popular initiative and a parliamentary initiative in order to reach a referendum.
Okay.
So BBI is not anchored in law, right? And in fact, it says that any process or anything done by the government... You don't think a
presidential directive is legal?
No. The Constitution says that the president and even the government, anything they do that is contrary to the Constitution is unlawful. Okay? So let's
are you saying that the BBI process is unlawful?
The BBI process, in so far as taking us to a referendum, is an unlawful process. That is not the way to do it. In fact, now that the BBI report has come out, I would have assumed we should have been working towards converting it into a bill, either through the parliamentary process or the popular initiative.
And then just hold a little bit so that we verify this, because you are saying, you're the same person who said that we should be taking this BBI report to NGOs and IEBC, yet you're saying it's unlawful. The thing is,
if you let me explain, then I'll be able to tell you. So what I've said is that insofar as taking us to a referendum, but if you wanted to take us to a referendum, then I want us to convert it to become a lawful document, which means we take the recommendations of the BBI process, prepare an implementation matrix and a bill where necessary, and then go collect the signatures from the public. And once you have done that and it has become a referendum question, then what happens is, in the referendum process, there are what they call referendum committees.
Right.
And those committees can be NGOs, it can be individuals, and they can now go to the public and educate them. Right. And also, if you look at when we prepared our constitution in 2010, there was a summary page, there were even flyers. There were flyers of 10 points, 5 points. There were even flyers that told you, what does it say about devolution?
So
what does it say on this? So we should be prepared.
Who should do that?
The task force. It should have been part of what the task force does. Even the current task force. And I remember asking one of the members of the task force, the Honorable Senator Wako, and I said, can you give me a hard copy, of it? He told me, because it was highly secret, they could not print any copies, and they didn't even want to print it through the government printer, that they had given a contract to some company to print it overseas due to the secrecy. That was his answer. So I'm still waiting that they should have those copies, because how do people discuss a document they have not read? And like I said, standards are you prepare flyers so that someone can say, on devolution, this is the flyer summary on devolution. On the issue of inclusivity, this is a flyer summary of it. And so when you look at, I know that 97 members of parliament from the Rift Valley region, after the BBI report came out, we read it. And we said there is nothing that we don't already know that is in the BBI report. Therefore, we said, insofar as the content is concerned,
Okay.
we support it.
Honorable Chege, at the end of the day,
Insofar as the process is, I do not support.
right. Let me bring in Honorable Sabina Chege as we wind up. At the end of the day, this is a handshake that was between two people. Kenyans still do not know what the handshake details of the handshake were. Is it fair that public resources are being used to drive an initiative, not a public agenda, but an initiative between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga? An initiative that was just two of them. Yes. Is it fair that they're using public resources?
One thing is that they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for Kenyans. And I think it has come out very clear when we met the president in Sagana. He explained to us why the handshake and why he had
even though we still do not know the details of the handshake.
We have the details now because the president was very clear, and even if you watched and followed the proceedings at the launch of BBI, I think the president, the former prime minister, tried a little bit to explain how the handshake came in, and the president now went. I think he spoke for the longest. He's never spoken for such a long time, and you could see he was at pains to explain to the Kenyans why we are where we are today. And for sure, between me and you, we know we are enjoying the peace. And if we didn't have that handshake, things would have been.
But what's happening is threatening that peace.
Now, what is threatening the peace is suspicion.
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing is, I've seen, sometimes things are very interesting. After the BBI report, we have some of my colleagues who went to the Mount Kenya region and had a meeting. I don't think anybody questions where they got their money. I think from the Rift Valley we also got the Sholei and the groups, they also went to, they had a meeting. And then we also had...
what's your guess? Where do they get the money?
I don't know, and I don't want to really
the
try...
meeting she's talking about in Central Kenya.
There was a meeting in Central Kenya. There was also a meeting in, was it Naivasha? There was also...
What do you mean, where do you get the money? I can pay my
exactly, even the
7,000 shillings stay in a hotel.
Even Kanu people, they had their meeting also. I think from also the Eastern region, they had their meeting. You see, what I've seen in this country, if I'm not there, if I'm not the one who came up with a plot, then it's not good, which is really unfair. If you talk about democracy, let people be. When you talk about government, money has been used, and especially when it comes to a person at the level of the deputy president, how much money was used, and which vote, because we are the ones who allocate money in parliament. Have we, Sholei, because I didn't see it even in our supplementary budget, allocated money for BBI.
So from where you sit,
Senator Ongeri said on TV here that they are going to go around the country and they already have 10 billion shillings.
From where?
Senator Ongeri said it.
You see, that's
together with Orengo, they made that statement. So we are going by the figure that they said to us, not that we made
exactly. That is Senator Ongeri. I don't think it's something that has been discussed in Parliament. I think because we are reopening Parliament in February, those are some of the things that will be raising such questions in Parliament because we allocate money.
From where you sit, do you think we can still implement and do what it is that BBI has advised without the task force? That the task force can go home and now we can now start implementing.
I don't think already the task force is then gazetted, and so I don't think we'll do without the task force. What I saw on that gazettement, they were told they are supposed to give a report by June.
How many reports do we need? Let me put it this way.
Let me finish because it's my time. And so I think Sholei really brought it well that we need a matrix. Because the report I'm expecting from them is not even about referendum. There are many things that have been raised by Kenyans in that BBI report. And they should take this chance in such forums. From the forum of Rift Valley, they come up with their opinion and maybe the things that they felt either they were missing or the things they strongly felt were a priority for Kenyans. From the Mount Kenya meeting, there was also, sentiment that came from there. From the Kisii meeting, I also saw a communique. They say, this is what we think. And I think people should be free. I'm looking forward. Let them do it in course. Let them do it even in Central Kenya. For me, I would even be looking forward for having those copies, the summarized one, so I can go and sit with my women at the marketplace. The women, my women groups, and ask them, is this what you want? So that if I'm given a chance also, I can also tell the task force, this is what the people feel, or they can have a chance to interact with the locals. At the end of the day, we must have a matrix. There are some things that are already in the Constitution that we don't need to do anything. We only need implementation. There are some things that we need the ministry to just act. There are some things that might need to come to Parliament in form of a law. So we might need some bills. And then we'll ask ourselves, do we then need a referendum? If yes, what is there in the referendum? So let us not become a bit uncomfortable. If it's not me who has initiated, then the whole thing is bad. I think that is really unfair.
Honorable Sabina Chege, I just want us to look at the two issues that the task force is supposed to to look at. And first is conduct validation of the task force report on BBI to a United Kenya through consultations with citizens, civil society, the faith-based organizations, cultural leaders, the private sector, and experts. That's according to the Gazette notice. And then the second mandate is that they will propose administrative, policy, statutory, or constitutional changes that may be necessary for the implementation of the recommendations contained in the task force, taking into account any relevant contributions made during the validation period.
Can I just make another question? So that we also have a chance to say
yes, this is the final remarks because we are practically out of time. So when you look at this, it pretty allows time for people to vent out the issues that they want. So why would politicians be so divided at this particular point in time? We start with you then.
That's what I'm saying, that our politicians now, this is how we begin to let Kenyans down. And you know, Kenyans are very progressive people and very objective. But now our leaders, because of, like Honorable Sabina is saying, suspicion and whatnot, because I'm not the one, you know, in front, I'm the one who's initiated, now you want to start scuttling the process. I think that BBI team should be led to do what they're going to do. And let's also remember that it's also a political process. But when they work with, of course, consultants. Like she was suggesting, they work with consultants. So we will have something tangible at the end of this process. And this process must be done in that way. There must be the matrix, the questions must be put, we must look for policies or amendments or, you know, then if there is a constitutional review or amendment, then it shall be posed at that point in time. And I want to just say one more thing and commend Honorable Chege, because she has talked about having to print physically and distribute. And what I'm saying to leaders, rather than making this, you know, a political issue, can we help Kenyans unpack this document? What are we waiting for? You know, the horse has already, you know, has taken off. Yeah. Instead of making a lot of noise, can we help with the civic education? Can we demand a bit more civic education? Can we take some strides and steps as leaders to help educate Kenyans or get Kenyans to come to the conversation and not leave them behind?
Honorable Chege, in less than a minute. So, how do we shield this process from? I know you don't agree with a lot of things in the framework, but how do you shield it from politics and politicians?
The only way to have shielded it from politics is one, like I've said, I would like to be able to be given the opportunity to prepare pro bono an implementation matrix. The implementation matrix will say, on this point, it goes to the Ministry of Agriculture. On this point, it goes to the Kenya Revenue Authority. On this point, it goes to this. On this point, there need to be legislation within Parliament. And then we can denote. And then even if there is something that needs a referendum, we develop a referendum question out of it. But because we have gone back again to the people to repeat the process, what is happening is you are allowing politicians to politicize it. But again, there is, I still stand by the fact that it's a waste of public resources to go back to the people when you already went to the people. All we need to do is to implement it. And no one is arguing about the BBI process. The BBI, the content. Everyone says the problems they have said there are the problems we know as Kenyans. They are the problems that the Jubilee manifesto has said it will fix. It is the same problems that Agenda 4 is supposed to fix. If it's on issues of devolution and strengthening devolution, that is the purpose of the Senate. The Senate should be passing laws to strengthen devolution. So what we are doing is trying to go in a very convoluted manner to resolve problems that we already have institutions for. And that is why we have become unfocused as a country. We have economic challenges, we have locusts, we have insecurity, and yet we, instead of strengthening those institutions to do their work, we are now saying that we have a process where we go to the 190. In fact, we should be telling the 190, after looking at the BBI process, each ministry should give a report of what they intend to do and what steps, strategic steps they will take to ensure that they address the challenges that have been raised in the BBI process. Then they can report that to the public. Then that will be a more methodical way of solving the problem. But now when we go back to the people, we are now talking. In fact, Kenyans should learn from the United Arab Emirates, where when they decided on their Vision 2030, they said we are not going to talk, we are going to do it. And that is what Kenyans need to move to. So we become a talk shop of task forces and going on, but I don't see any exact result. For example, the BBI process said that KRA should broaden the tax base. I want KRA to give us a report that these are the steps we have taken to broaden the tax base.
I'm sure we'll never have sufficient time to really talk about all these matters, but allow me to ask you that because you've said 2 times on this show that you're going to do pro bono preparation of the mappings of implementation.
I've done about halfway.
Would you do it and then we can have a discussion on that?
Yes.
So Honorable Chege has made that undertaking. So thank you so much.
So not next week, the other week.
The other week, in 2 weeks' time. So thank you so much, Honorable Chege from Uasin-Gishu, Honorable Sabina Chege from Moranga County, and Sylvia Kasaga.
Because I think from where she has written about the pro bono, and I really wanted to congratulate her for that.
Okay.
And I think that what she has recommended from the ministry, from the KRA, this was not a document that was supposed to be a dictatorial document. It is a document that belongs to the people. They already gave the first printout, so it's for the people to agree whether this is what they said or not.
Well, there is going to be online.
We have already.
And I don't know anyone.
Okay, Honorable Chege,
once the people own the document.
We are out of time.
Yeah.
So up next we'll be speaking to the former Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor Jacob Kemenyi. He is currently the Ambassador of Kenya to Belgium, Luxembourg and European Union. He'll be coming to studio to talk about several matters, including his experience having moved from the Cabinet to a foreign mission. We have that conversation at the end of this break. You can text in your views and questions via 22422 or Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Gituku, at Zinzi_K. #to use is the break. We'll be back in a moment.